Before we get started with this episode of Andrew Discusses, I just want to put the following warning out there for everyone concerned. The following episode, we will be talking about Sword Art Online, specifically Sword Art Online as a whole, Season 1, Season 2, and up to Episodes 9 and 10 of Aliceization. Because of this, I will not be offended, nor will I be hurt if anybody doesn't really want to watch the video or backs out now. This video may not be for everyone, but I promise you there will be no images, no clips, nothing graphic. It's just a discussion. That's it. For those of you that don't know what happened, there was some weirdness in episodes 9 and 10 of Sword Art Online Aliceization, as well as some not-so-greatness in the first season of Sword Art Online, and some in the second season, too. So, I just want to put this out there that if this content isn't exactly up for your favorites, I won't be offended if you don't want to watch the video. I'm just putting it out there. This is the content warning. YouTube can't come after me for saying that I wasn't doing something to prevent this. So, without any further ado, I present Andrew Discusses Sword Art Online. So, I'm a huge fan of Sword Art Online, or I was a huge fan of Sword Art Online. Now, I play the game for the tablets and mobile devices because, honestly, it's just a MMORPG at this point, and I get to have some fun. I enjoy it, I like it, it's a blast, it really is. But as far as the anime is concerned, there was some major issues. Seasons 1, 2, and up to Season 10 of Season 3. And honestly, I'm not a fan of how this has gone. I've actually just read up to the finale of the first half of this, up into War of Underworld, which has yet to start. And an editorial this week caught my attention. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with what I'm about to talk about, there was an episode in Aliceization, episode 10, which is honestly one of the worst episodes of an anime series to ever air. I'm not even going to hide my distaste for this episode because, honestly, this was the most offensive episode I've ever seen in my life of any anime series. And I'm even comparing this to some of the darkest anime you could ever find. And I mean anime, not hentai. I mean pure anime that you could ever find. This ranks up there among one of the darkest. In fact, I feel like every single person that watched this should end up being on a list, myself included. Thank you, Reki Kawahara, for that. This is something that honestly should have never been done, but it's part of the editorial. The editorial, which a link, by the way, is in the description, is entitled Why Sword Art Online Was Allowed to Return to Toonami and Why Reki Kawahara Promises No More Damsels and Assault Scenes Going Forward. So, for those of you unfamiliar with what I just said, in episode 10 of Sword Art Online Aliceization, two characters get assaulted. And not in a good way. We're talking Law & Order SVU type of assault here. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. Look at Season 1, the second to last episode near the finale, and Season 2 after the Gun Gale Online tournament, the Ballad of Bullets. Similar things have happened throughout this series, and honestly, the first one was not handled well. The second one was sort of we knew this was going to happen. The person was a psychopath going around killing people outside the game. So it kind of was understandable once you figured out who it was, what was liable to happen, but still uncalled for. The third one was just flat out wrong. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this. I've only seen up to episode 12 of Aliceization, and I am not going to watch any more of it. I can't. I've read up on it now to know what happened, and in all honesty, I'm just going to tell you the final part here. Let me just scroll all the way back down here to the bottom, because I'm on the Wikipedia page. Basically, episode 24 basically ends with Kirito walking up to the system console, initiating a communication with the real world, and discovers that Ocean Turtle, the sort of place where he is in the real world, is under attack. The one person instructs Kirito to take Alice's memory to the World's End altar in the Dark Territory before getting cut off. Kirito then loses consciousness from Fluck-like damage, and it's FLUC, by the way, damage, as the attackers shut the power off at Wrath, causing a surge that strikes his comatose body, and thus the series ends, at least for now. I'm not a fan of how Aliceization has gone so far, and Episode 10, Taboo Index, is by far one of the darkest episodes in anime history. However, it's the editorial that I really want to discuss today because, honestly, Sword Art Online was good. I'm not going to lie about that. There were some issues with it, there were some problems, but it wasn't a bad series. Sure, there were bad scenes, there were bad points, but yeah. So, it was allowed to return to Toonami. The first 2 seasons aired. It was all good, hunky-dory, and fine. And then, well, it ended. And Toonami just moved on to something else. Aliceization isn't perfect. Aliceization isn't good. And Riki Kawahara, I'm just going to say this, and I mean no disrespect or anything, but there's a personal place in hell for you. There really is. There's a private wing in hell for you. It's waiting just for you. Just off of this. And like I said, I mean no disrespect, but this was horrible. So, here's the plot synopsis for episode 10. I'm just going to talk about the elephant in the room first before I get to the second part of this. Episode 10's plot synopsis is Yugo and Kirito's pages are missing. Kirito goes to look for them while Yugo gets a message that they're basically being held. He knows where. He goes to confront the 2 people that are holding him hostage and realizes what's about to happen when he goes in and sees that they're tied and basically, well, they're gagged and tied up on a bed. Unfortunately, the taboo code prevents him from harming the 2 sleazebags that are doing this to them because they're more powerful in this world than he is by royalty and basically politicalness, I guess you could say. Their class makes them higher. So he's forced to watch them as they prepare to rape both of the girls. And as I said, this is one of the darkest moments in anime history. And honestly, Riki Kawahara, like I said, and I mean no disrespect, but there's a personal wing in hell for you. I'm not even gonna lie, it's a private wing, just for you in hell. Yugo decides to screw the code, screw the taboo, and attacks him, cutting off the one guy's arm, which causes his right eye to start going crazy. I never understood the eye thing. I still don't understand the eye thing, nor do I care to understand it anymore. Because this isn't the darkest thing in this... Oh, no. This is the darkest thing that this part of it had to do with. But later on in it, and spoiler, by the way, if you didn't see it, but I'm just going to ruin it for you anyway. He gets cut in half. He fuses with his sword and gets cut in half. There you go. I read that, by the way. I didn't watch it. God, I didn't watch it. So, basically, his right eye gets destroyed. Yugo's right eye is destroyed. The other guy's about to kill Yugo, but Kirito arrives, cuts off both of that guy's arms, which kills him. The other one escapes. The floating head that was from episode 1 saw the action, alerted the Integrity Knights. They came to pick up Kirito and Yugo the next day after the instructor restored Yugo's eye. Both of them are sent over to the Central Cathedral to await their punishment, which is basically a fate worse than death, as they were probably going to be reformatted into Integrity Knights. Yeah. That's literally the episode of Aliceization, and honestly, it's not a good episode. The editorial goes on to say that basically the whole Sword Art Online thing being huge, one of the biggest things. It's a hit or miss aspect among other factors, mostly for the fact that Kirito and Asuna, but it's also panned for its harem aspects. It's judgmented because so many people see it as, oh, this guy's got a whole bunch of girls, he's got a harem. Whereas a majority of them are his friends, and he's never shown interest in any of them other than Asuna. So, yeah. Sure, there's the whole, his cousin liked him, but she didn't realize it was him because they were in a game. That happened. But he never really had eyes for anyone other than Asuna. So, yeah, it was the other ones that liked him. But this would be the same thing as condemning somebody for having a whole group of female friends and they're a guy. Somebody would go, oh, he has a harem. No, he's got a bunch of friends that are female. He's got some other guy friends too, but it's not a harem. They're just friends. That's what this is. However, this is something that's just annoying me. So there was always this damsel in distress aspect of this. And while I understand it for the second half of the first season, there really wasn't a damsel in distress aspect for the second season. That was mostly Sion, and I know I'm mispronouncing her name. I can't pronounce it right, I guess. She wasn't really in distress, more as she was a loner. She had a condition that basically gave her some PTSD after an incident, which caused her to recede and basically shelter herself from the outside world. That being the case, she wasn't really in distress, she was just scared. There was really nothing there. She was just frightened of the world around her. Kirito just brought some light into her darkness and saved her that way. He didn't exactly, save her from her distress. He just saved her from the darkness of her own self-doubt. At least that's how I always interpreted it. As far as the other half of that season, the whole Mother Rosaria part with Yuki, technically, she wasn't in distress either. None of them were. Yuki was dying. We all knew she wasn't going to live. And honestly, I will give kudos to Reki Kawahara for this one. That was a very touching way to send off Yuki inside the game. Everyone showing up and giving her a warrior's funeral. That was truly a wonderful thing. And honestly, it's one of the best out there that I can ever think of. Even ranking Ace's death in One Piece doesn't even... It pales in comparison. Truly, it really does. But the whole damsel in distress aspect, I kind of think was only played in the one part of Season 1. After that, it kind of just went to everybody doing their own thing. Even with Aliceization, they're not exactly trying to save Alice from her distress, because here's the thing, she doesn't know she's in trouble. She was brainwashed. Yes, the Integrity Knights did a resynthesizing and brainwashed her. So they don't really know that she's so she doesn't even know that she's really in trouble. However, that doesn't stop the fact that apparently it's considered a damsel in distress thing, and that's fine. In all honesty, I'm done with the series anyway. I know I have to review it at some point for the anime GBU, but it might actually just be one that I'm going to be skipping. I don't know. However, this just doesn't... It doesn't work here. So, the editorial goes on to talk about the episode 10 of Aliceization, Taboo Index, as Humfort and Rios use a legal loophole to rape two of the cadets, two of the pages, Kirito and Yugo's pages. That's honestly the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in an anime, and in any anime at all. And I've seen Death Note, I've seen Paranoia Agent. Okay? Their disturbingness pales in comparison to this. It really does. But Yugo and Kirito were not going to let that happen to their disciples, and did what they had to do. And honestly, it's just... It should never have happened in the first place. I'm just going to say it. This is something that should have been flagged from the start and never led up to. While it does aid into the series a bit, they could have done something else to aid into the series, to aid into the storytelling, and aid into the plot movement of this. They did not have to go this route. Anticipating the backlash, though, with the scene being more graphic than the previous ones, Aniplex placed content warnings at the beginning of the episode and even censored parts of the scene on all streaming services they put the show on, in comparison to the Japanese airing, which was uncut. Sadly, that was the one that I saw. Which, like I said, thank you, Reki Kawahara. Somehow I swear I'm on a list now somewhere thanks to you. I really am. And for those interested in the comparison, there's a video link in the thing. Don't watch it. Don't even bother. Viewer discretion is advised. Yeah, that's beyond true. The concerns, though, do have justifications. The rape and sexual assault as a plot device tends to be a very sensitive subject. This isn't Law and Order SVU. This is an anime series, okay? Not even close. It's been for those that have been victimized by such a traumatic event or know someone who has, this is not something you want to see. And like I said, this is something that should have never been seen in the first place. When it was time for Toonami to premiere the dub, Cartoon Network Standards and Practices Department actually managed to do something very, very well thought out for the first time, I want to say, ever in their lives. They acted accordingly by censoring what they needed to make, censoring what they had to, so it could broadcast. Honestly, you could have skipped the episode, and I don't think anybody would have mattered or cared. This could have easily been skipped, and nothing in the story would have advanced other than, oh, they're at the Central Cathedral. That's it. You could have skipped the entire episode and just left it as, I wonder how they got here, and not cared. You could have just said they found out something, or they cheated in something and they were sentenced. Or I don't care. You could have done that. However, there was the whole thing with, as they did with any other show with this nature, just to make sure it was kept to warrant a TVMA rating. Detractors, though, of Sword Art Online have already argued that simply censoring the episode isn't good enough, and have gone as far as pleading to Toonami to cancel and blacklist SAO from airing on the block because of it. Justin DeMarco, his stance on the situation, while he may not necessarily be a fan of such moves either, he doesn't see it as a big deal, as his critics do, especially considering Toonami has acquired titles that also have their fair share of controversial content and have received less vitriol as results. However, Toonami completed SAO Season 1 and premiered Season 2. They picked up several shows which pushed the boundaries of what they would do. You had Kill la Kill, Black Lagoon, Hellsing Ultimate, and just, it's just that. There are other anime series that they picked up that were more disturbing than the first two seasons, but this is more disturbing than the first two seasons combined. So there is that. DeMarco made a comment at a podcast later on, and honestly, it was really just weird. Outside of the content, he said that he received 0 complaints about the content of Fairy Dance outside of the small vocal minority of detractors. That was disturbing enough as it is, but it built up to it, but still was disturbing. I mean, you knew that the guy was a sicko who was doing this, yet at the same time, you couldn't stop. And more recently, Jason DeMarco was asked this question on Twitter regarding the controversy. Although SAO creator Reki Kawahara has since regretted creating the events of episode 10 and vows not to make another, Many of your critics have insisted that SAO should be disqualified from airing on Toonami because of his usage of sexual assault, even though there are quite a few of these same folks who seem to have no problem with Hellsing, Kill la Kill, and even One Piece aired such events on Toonami. I remember a few years back that you said you received zero complaints regarding the Fairy Dance arc outside of trolls who decided to make a big deal and have since went on to air more graphic shows like Black Lagoon, the previously mentioned Hellsing and Kill la Kill, and JoJo. What are your thoughts on the usage of uncomfortable moments, for a lack of better term, on Toonami and TV in general? To which his reply was, a good question and a complicated one. I think that anime has for a long time treated the subject of sexual assault in an overly casual way. This is partially due to the male-dominated nature of the anime industry and partially due to the differences in social mores between US and Japan. However, I think that today's anime audiences are more connected and global, and as such are more able to push back on what they feel are overly casual, graphic, or just poorly executed stories that involve sexual assault in anime. His personal feelings is that sexual assault should be something that is only used in a story if it's absolutely central to our understanding of the character, and even then it should be done in a non-hilarious way, if at all possible. That's just his preference, though. There are many anime, and we've aired a few, that use things like sexual assault or the threat of that as thematic and story drivers. While we air a show that might have a scene or two that we aren't into, if the rest of the series is one we are into, in that case SAO1, I think viewers have every right to wonder about the inclusion of the scene in episode 10 and ask why it needed to be there and whether or not the show is worth watching. I think it is. You may disagree, but we don't feel bad editing the scene. We don't feel bad editing the scene down heavily, since the creator himself admitted he went a bit too far with it. Anyway, as with anything we air on Toonami, it's all looked at and approved by our Standards and Practices Department and edited to fit TV rating standards. Thankfully, that difficult work is their job, not his. This is not a response you would give for something like this. You're basically throwing every anime series ever created under the bus. This isn't an answer for something like this. This is wrong. Honestly, I'm not a fan of what this episode was, and Reki Kawahara has admitted it was wrong. So, first off, he admitted it was wrong, but still, there's a special place in hell waiting for you, just for this alone. But still, this isn't exactly the way to go here. Reki Kawahara apologized to both of the voice actors for performing the painful scene. He apologized that the scene was even made. He admitted he went too far. But honestly, if you knew this was going too far, you could have found a way around it to prevent anything from happening, if you knew this was going too far. As far as Sword Art Online is concerned, and any anime in general, eventually you're going to have something that's going to bring up some questions. It's going to be questionable practice. It's just going to be a choice of, is this a good idea or a bad idea? And this was one that should not have been done. Honestly, I mean, Sword Art Online as a whole is a fine series, but Aliceization did not need this. The fans didn't need this. They didn't need to see this. And yet, it was brought to them because of some unknown reasons. And I can't stand for that. Andrew doesn't touch stuff like this. And honestly, if it wouldn't be for the fact that this was SAO related, and it falls under the whole harem, Kirito's just a harem, this is all anime, it's just a weird, blah blah blah, insert your thing here, I wouldn't have touched this. However, this isn't the only anime that it's dealing with. This is a much wider scale. No anime series should ever have to deal with something like this, nor should it ever be construed in an anime series like this. No anime series should ever have to have something like this in it. Ever. And I mean that. Anime is supposed to be something for people to enjoy. A fantasy world, if you will, a dark mind terror, a screw you to your mind. An adventure, something lighthearted, some comedy, romance, slice of life adventure, action, what have you. This is not that. It never will be. And anyone that thinks it is, I don't know what to say. Honestly, it wasn't a good idea to do. Ricky Kawahara knows this. Cartoon Network, you want to blame them for airing it, but the problem is, it was already out on the air months before they got around to airing it. This aired near the end of December, originally. Episode 10 came out near the end of December. By the time it aired on Toonami, we were already a good 4 months into the year. News of it had already spread. You knew it was coming. When they announced that it was happening, you knew it was coming. This wasn't something that you would look forward to. This wasn't something to consider as a good thing. And honestly, it's one of the most disturbing things that I've ever seen in an entire anime series in my life. And I personally hope I never have to watch something like that again. Thank you for being here for this video, for those of you that have stuck around to the end of it. The next Andrew discusses video is going to be something a little more lighthearted, I promise. But this is just something that I wanted to talk about, because this is just something that's wrong. And honestly, it needs to be prevented from ever happening again. Because anime is supposed to be for everyone. It's supposed to be fun. That wasn't fun. That was painful, both for the voice actors, the actresses, the people doing it, drawing it, animating it, and airing it. It wasn't fun for any of them. And honestly, it can't be fun to watch it. Something like that should never happen again. And hopefully, it won't. I'm Andrew Rhodes, and this has been Andrew Discusses. Thank you.